Hi, I'm Jonathan Desmond, and I'm a documentary wedding photographer and life photographer. I'm very passionate about film, the printed image, and of course documentary wedding photography. Recently I've had a lot of questions from brides and friends and family about using disposable cameras and Instax and instant print options at weddings. I just wanted to take the time to do this video to answer some technical questions and to give you an idea on kind of what to expect when you're going with these options as either your photography or as a part of your photography. The key points that I want to make is that these options can't really replace a professional wedding photographer. I've talked to a couple of wedding planners and various brides and grooms, and they all say that it's highly recommended that you book a wedding photographer, a professional wedding photographer, for your wedding day to be able to just to be able to capture those moments and deal with a lot of very difficult lighting situations and being able to create something very artistic that is very unique to your own wedding. These are definitely very cool, but as you will see, I'm going to talk about the pros and cons and some of the limitations that are involved with using these methods. So let's start. Okay, so now I'm going to talk about one of the most popular options that a lot of brides look to is the disposable film cameras. This one's called the Fujifilm Quick Snap Flash. I'm just going to actually open it right now and show you what this is all about. A lot of people will buy a whole bunch of these, put them onto the wedding, on the guest tables, and then let the guests basically use it and take all the different photos. And this is a great, reasonably economic option, but there are a couple of downsides to it, and I'll explain that in a little bit. Okay. This is all it is. As you can see, it's really quite small, quite a big viewfinder, and a simple wind on the back here to make it go. And it is pretty straightforward. I think there's a little flash button here. You can hear it wind. I'm going to take a photo of you guys. I think it's ready to go. And voila. That's pretty cool. Now the great thing about this is, one, it's really light. It can fit in your pocket, and it's very small, very portable. Very easy to set up, very easy to use. There's only a few buttons that you need to know. But I'll get back to that ease of use when it comes to the effectiveness of some of the photos. And generally they have about 24 to 36 frames. Now let me talk about some of the pros and cons of using this option. So one of the great things about this particular option here is that it's very cheap in terms of cost of the camera itself. So the cameras are only about, I bought this one for about $15. $15 per table is a lot cheaper than having to buy a full-on camera setup, as you'll see with the other options there. And equipment-wise, it's the cheapest option. You don't have to buy very much hardware because the hardware is all built into this one unit. And like I said, it's very light actually. I kind of want to get a second one. One of the main things about using a disposable camera is that you don't get to see the results right away. With your cell phone, with the instant photos, with the Selphy printers, which I'll explain a little bit later, you get to see the results pretty much right away. With this one, guests don't really know what they're taking photos of until the very end. That's kind of the nature of film photography, which in itself is a really cool thing because it is a surprise, but at the same time it's something that if you get a whole bunch of photos that are blurry or out of focus or too dark, it's a little bit disconcerting. So one of the other things is that these cameras are getting harder to find, whereas before when people were using a lot of film, they were easier to find. Nowadays everyone's using digital, they're using their cameras, their cell phone cameras, and yeah, the demand for these has gone down, so you're not going to be able to find them as easily. One of the other cons about this is that it's actually quite difficult to master, to be able to take really good photos. It has certain limitations. Especially when you start talking about reception time, when the light starts to get really dark and things and the film isn't able to pick up as much light, even though it has a built-in flash. And I'll explain that in a little bit, but it is difficult to master, and once you work within the technical limitations, you can produce some pretty decent results. Most people, they don't know how to use it properly, will end up taking very dark photos and sometimes blurry photos with this camera here. It uses film in bright outdoor light, or if you're using it in dark reception lighting or even in shade, I recommend being within at least 3 to 4 meters away from your subject or from your target. A lot of times people will use these, you'll see a guest using this right at the back of the reception tables, trying to get a photo way down the hall of the bride and the groom, and the photo will usually end up really dark, and you'll just see like a little speck of light, just because this flash isn't powerful enough to be able to pick up all the lighting in the reception, and the film itself is not able to pick up enough lighting in the reception. So definitely, if these are being used, I recommend using them within close proximity of subjects. These are best used, as I mentioned, in bright outdoor light. And if you're using it indoors or in any sort of shade, definitely turn on that flash and get within close proximity of your subject. Now the other thing is, if you are using it with a flash on, it can be very disturbing. If you're running up to the ceremony, to the groom and the bride, and you start blasting away with your flash, you get pretty annoying pretty quickly. You also probably run into the primary wedding photographer as well. That could be a little bit of trouble. These are great. These are great options. Just make sure that educate your guests on how to use them and how to use them effectively. They are pretty reasonable, and they're a lot of fun. Okay, so let's talk about the Instax options now. This is the instant photo options, of which there are many. And by instant photo, I mean that you're able to do this and get an instant photo. There's a variety of different instant options available. I'm just showing you the Fuji Instax line, which is kind of the main one I like to use. There's also options by companies like Polaroid. Polaroid Originals makes a very fancy instant film camera. The great thing about the instant options is that you now have quite a number of options available in terms of sizes. The disposable cameras are pretty much one single size, and although they vary in types of lenses that they use, most of them are pretty standard set. The Instax options, in particular the Fuji Instax options, which is what I'll talk about today, have stuff ranging from the very wide formats to the mini formats, which produce photos about this big, and also a Instax square format, which is about right in between these two formats here, and it's a square format as well. That's a new format, and I haven't had a chance to try that one just yet. One of the great things about the Instax option is that you get to see almost right away what's produced or what photo you took. Whereas with the disposable cameras, you don't really see until you processed it. With this option, you get to take a photo. It develops over maybe 60 seconds, I believe, maybe 2 minutes in order to get its full colors and saturation and contrast. But within a minute, you're able to see a good chunk of the photo develop, and you get to see it, give it right away. That's one of the great things, and one of the things I do to gift to my brides at the end of the wedding day sometimes. The really cool thing is that you don't really need to process it at the end of the night. Not like a disposable film camera where you have to take all the film cameras and take them to the lab. The instant photos are right here, and they're ready to go, and they're ready to be stuck into a guest book or to be given away. Which leads me to one of the cons of using the Instax option. You have to buy a camera, or you have to buy 2 cameras, and it's quite expensive to have to buy a camera for each table, not to mention you have to buy packs of the film as well. Much like the disposable camera, as I was mentioning, there are some technical limitations to these cameras. I'll have to do a secondary tutorial next time to teach you how to use them, but much like the disposable cameras, these ones are best used in daylight, bright daylight, maybe a little bit of overcast. Things start to get muddy, and they also have to have a flash on if you're shooting it in a reception, in a dark hall, or even like an indoor space to get the most light. And there's also this one, you have to focus also on the the distance, the focus options. So in some of these cameras, they have options for shooting very far and also for shooting within a close distance. So by default, these are set to shoot and be in focus for objects that are within 1 to 3 meters. After you go a little bit past 3 meters, you have to turn on one of the settings. I don't know if you've heard of that there. In order for it to adjust its focus for things that are beyond 3 meters. So if you're trying to shoot a large group that's quite far, best to use the mountain setting or the farther distance setting. Otherwise, your shots will be a little bit soft and probably not as sharp or as in focus as it could be. When you're taking photos with the Instax and you don't turn on the flash, or you try to turn it off while in a dark setting, like say like an evening Chinese restaurant, for example, chances are your photos are going to be very muddy. You're not going to be able to see a lot. You just have like a little blip. And again, it's much like the disposable camera. So you need to kind of fill in the light because it's obviously not daylight anymore. And what you do is you turn on make sure the flash setting is on, and make sure that you keep your subject within 1 to 3 meters is probably the maximum. I know some of these will say 4. It's a bit of a reach depending on the lighting situation. I would say 1 to 3 meters is your best bet in order to get the most effective photos indoors with the Fuji Instax systems here. Now, if you do use it within the limitations, you can still get great photos, but definitely just be aware that these limitations are there so that you don't waste a lot of film and that you don't end up taking too many photos of black darkness and just not having not having memories come through from the photos that you want to take. These make great guest book options. I know a lot of people will take these to a wedding, have a guest book ready, and then they'll take these photos, put a little backing on it, and then stick it into a guest book. They're great for that, and they can also give them away right at the very end of the night, or right there if people want to have it. They can take it home. Okay, so one other option that I want to talk to you about is the Canon Selphy, which is almost like a small portable printer. It's another option if you want to have photos kind of made on demand and printed at a wedding day. I sometimes bring it to certain shoots to provide full prints to my clients. Even on the day of, they can be done. You can print from I usually print from my professional DSLR, but you can also print from your phone with a Wi-Fi connection, and it works quite well as far as I can tell. So one thing that you need to know about the Canon Selphy is that it usually needs a power supply. I don't have the special option or the model that supports a portable battery. In this case, this model does need an AC adapter. It needs a wall plug to be able to operate and to print photos. The great thing about the other options is that, well, especially with the disposable cameras, it basically has a built-in battery or no battery at all, which you'll never need to replace because by the time you're done, it'll be the battery will be finished and recycled, and the film roll will be also recycled. The camera will be done and recycled as well. The Instax cameras you'll probably need to buy. In this case, this one has, I believe, 2 CR5 batteries, or in the case of the Instax, you need AA batteries. The great thing is that with these other options here, you can buy batteries on the go, and it's very portable. This one, unless you have the model that has a built-in battery that you can charge, you'll need to find a wall plug, as I mentioned, in order to operate it. Now, the great thing about this camera is that you can print on demand. You can use, as I mentioned, your SD card or your cell phone in order to print the photos. The cool thing is that you can actually choose through the screen which photos you want to print, and you can actually collate the print jobs so that the one prints after the other, and you can print basically I think up to 5 to 10 at a time. There is a Canon Selphy app that you can open, connect to the printer, print it out, and then off you go. You might run into some issues with regards to, I know sometimes there's like Wi-Fi incompatibilities, or you need to set up the Wi-Fi for the system in order to make it work. there might be some technical issues. So there is some setup involved in order to make it work correctly, and then also having a compatible phone, which hopefully is, for the most case, people have compatible phones, in order to make it work and be able to speak to one another. One of the major cons of using this print option is that it does have a high initial cost. The Canon Selphy, I think I've seen it run for about $150 to $200, depending on the model that you pick, and that was Canadian dollars. Plus you also buy the film pack as well if it doesn't come with film, which is another $50 or so. So the outlay is quite substantial from the very beginning, but you are able to print quite a number of photos from them. Whereas with the Instax options and the disposable cameras, you're kind of limited to a set number. This one you can print quite a number at a time, and the print packages, the paper packages also do come with quite a lot of paper as well. So the Canon Selphy it's a little bit of a bulkier option, not as portable as say the Instax Mini or the disposable cameras, which are very easy to give out. But it is a great option if you are looking to make 4x6 prints on the spot, and they do come out quite nice and on very nice, looks to be archival paper, and yeah, they're still very vibrant, and the print quality is very good, and yeah, it's a fantastic little device if you don't mind lugging it around and trying to find a wall plug in order to operate it. So that's all I really have to say about these for now. If you have any questions, feel free to contact me. And I can also show some demos if people are interested. I'll also see if I can create a PDF quick sheet for you guys so you can refer to it as a quick download of my notes and some ideas for you guys if you're looking at either the disposable cameras, the instant options, or a print-on-demand portable printer. But otherwise, that's it from me, and have yourself a good one. Prior to me producing this video, asked me a question with regards to how do I put my prints into albums and guest books and keep them stuck there. What you'll find with a lot of these prints is that the backing is very slippery. It's a very very plasticky type of material, very slippery type of material, and the conventional tape and glue will tend to crack and dry up and not be able to glue it in properly. So what I have done, as you can see from this book I put together, is use these little sticky corners to be able to encase and frame each of the photos. Now this is from a project I had done for the Art of Photography podcast, photography assignments. And these corners here, they have a backing that's kind of like the same sticky material that's used for envelopes that you lick and it becomes sticky. These will adhese. These will stick to the paper, and then you just put them into the corners, and then they would stick. That way you don't have to put glue on the back of these and try to keep them on. That generally doesn't work, especially when you start bending the pages. Oops, that's my pen.